with talk about what's going on around the world. You're sort of a North Star for a lot of people at times. I know that you've been quarantining pretty steadily, pretty strictly, but I wanted to know what you think. Why are so many people rebelling against this idea of masks and science?
Well, I have no idea because, honestly, for me, who is, outside in public, particularly, I'm an average citizen. I'm going to have to wear it, maybe an hour a day, if I'm out. And let's say if everyone's right about, hey, you didn't really need to wear a mask. Let's say you're right.
Mm-hmm.
It only inconvenienced for an hour. But if you're wrong, you say you kill people. So the risk outweighs the reward, So I think that it's important to understand that as a citizen is just, your sacrifice. And I think maybe being in sports, people who've been in sports have sacrificed their personal gain for the better of the good of the team.
Mm-hmm.
And so for us, it's not unusual to do that. For me, being on a championship team, Houston Rockets, number one team in the country in college,
yep.
Like you're okay with giving some of your individual things up for the greater of the good.
I totally understand it. It's so mind boggling to me. And I ask you about sort of the role of larger issues like politics and sports this week. A large story is that a reporter we all call Woj and lovingly love his bombs. He gets suspended for 2 weeks for sending an F-word laced email to a senator as a reply for being critical of social issues. A lot of people and players are standing up for Woj. What were your feelings when you read about the situation?
Well, I just feel that there is a line of, personal and there's a line of work. And sometimes those lines do blend. However, his personal emails, I don't know if he's using ESPN's email to send these things out. I don't know how that bleeds in at times. Mm-hmm. When you publicly make statements on your Instagram or your Twitter, at times that could really reflect on your employer and their views. So I understand that. But if he's sending a personal email about his personal political views to a personal senator, at times that is not our business.
Yeah, it seems crazy for me, especially because I applaud so much of finding out personal beliefs of people, especially in the NBA, but I found it so messed up that it was basically, it was sent to his personal. He responded with a personal. I mean, if employers or, any sports league start looking into people's personal emails as, a reflection of their employer, it does seem like a very slippery slope.
Yeah. I think that when you make it a public viewpoint, then you do have an obligation to your family, your friends, and your employer, in that order. Like when you make it public. But if you do not make it public, you don't have an obligation, regardless of what your belief is, if I agree with it or not, you don't have an obligation to us at all, or your employer, or your fans, or your friends.
Yeah, no matter the
but if
belief.
you make it public, you do.
Yeah. Which brings us to the NBA bubble. This past weekend, we saw finally some optimism from players in Orlando, whether it was Chris Paul playing cornhole or the Mavs having a DJ balcony dance party. But right before we got on the phone, Russell Westbrook announced that he had tested positive for COVID and now obviously has to quarantine and not play. So what do you think morale is right now in Orlando for these players?
I think it's, I would say if I was there, I'm not, obviously being in that bubble is a whole unique situation. So you have to say if you're there. If I was there, I'm optimistic, but super cautious because we understand that this is the most contagious virus that we've had. And it's the most deadly in our lifetime, period. So there's no question that's out of bounds. There's no, thought process that's out of bounds. So everyone is optimistically cautious though. And here you have a guy who's, already down there or right to be. I think he's just getting there or what have you. Mm-hmm. And so, it's an unbelievable, scenario that one of the best players in the league has to be quarantined for minimum of 14 days.
I mean, I know I've heard you say in other interviews, and it's kind of how I feel about, a rookie is going to have a different response to leaving his family and sort of the risks than someone who has a full family and's been in the league for 7, 8 years. But now with Westbrook and sort of seeing some of the video from the bubble, and we're all laughing at it because it is funny to see, JJ Redick shotgun a beer because he's bored. But do you think this overall bubble idea, now not having Westbrook play, and what will this championship mean, was it the right thing to do?
I don't think there's a right or wrong thing. Like,
Right.
there is no equation that is comfortable. Every day we get new information that actually contradicts sometimes what the information was before. I don't think there's any right way. Like, just as we opened up, it's like, should we wear a mask or not? Like, the information that comes in is so contradictory and so diametrically opposed to the one that we heard before at times. There hasn't been a united front. There hasn't been one message that's come from people we trust and say, we're going to follow that as a nation. So now that's why you have spiking in certain areas and all of those things. And that's the most difficult part about being part of this, is the uncertainty of the information and where you're getting it from.
Yeah. And like, even right before we got on the phone together, I was talking to my wife about Westbrook. And, I've heard from Gobert a little bit that he still has lasting effects. We've heard whispers that, like, oh, these players could feel, or anyone could feel, the effects on their lungs for years to come. I mean, I don't even know if that's a true statement. I mean, I hate putting anyone, let alone my favorite athletes, in that predicament. But I don't know if that's the truth. I don't know if it goes away. I don't know if it sticks with you. I have no clue.
Yeah, it's a new virus.
Yeah.
So no one knows what the long-term ramifications are. And even when you told me Westbrook, you're the first one to tell me that.
Oh.
I wasn't aware that he was, had tested positive.
Yeah.
So I'm learning this information as we're talking, and because there's so many other things between the social unjust, the spiking in Florida and Texas, and then, like, I live in Los Angeles. What is it doing here?
Mm-hmm.
And you have young kids and then all of a sudden, Russell Westbrook tests positive. Like, that's last on my list.
Yeah. It's quite a time.